How does the principle of nonviolence apply to areas of life beyond just physical force?
Good. I think that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Wish we had a
Yes.
good answer.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. No, you know what? I think it is, to reduce it down to a rule about physical force is to totally miss the point. It is the call to live in shalom, in congruity, right? So it means that at the center of the kingdom, what the kingdom is all about, is living as much as possible, moving in this direction, where you have a lack of conflict, first between you and God, so there's peace between you and God, and then a lack of conflict between you and you. So there's congruity between you and you. Most of our consternation comes because there's not congruity there. There's conflict there. Anger with yourself, hate yourself, disagree with yourself, all that. It's warfare on the inside. And I would say that when we say peace is at the center of the gospel, we mean that before we mean peace, lack of physical violence towards another. In fact, I would argue that all external violence is simply the manifestation of internal violence. It's because we're violently related, we have conflict with God and conflict with ourselves, that we have conflict with others, and we're willing to resort to whatever force we need to resolve it. But the teaching of peace is first and foremost about being a shalom person, where there is a lack of conflict between you and God, you, and therefore you and all others. And then you and creation. It's that holistic. So it's about putting off all hostile thoughts, violent thoughts. That's what Jesus is getting at when he says, don't go feeling righteous because you didn't murder somebody. Have you said raka? Is there violence in your heart? Having hostility towards your brother. So violent thoughts, pay attention to those. Hostile thoughts. All gossiping is a form of violence. You're detracting the worth of another. The term for violence, it comes from the Latin. It means to violate something. We engage in violence whenever we violate the intrinsic worth of something. So since everybody has unsurpassable worth, whenever we think about them in any way that is less than that they have unsurpassable worth, we have committed violence. And whenever we treat ourselves and think about ourselves and have hostility towards ourselves, as that is not in congruity with unsurpassable worth, we're committing violence. You see? And so that is what the peace thing is about more than anything else. Waking up to all the ways that there is violence in our thoughts, in our attitudes, our feelings. That's why I found about 10 years ago that I had to detox from the whole thing. I had to just go, I have to declare war, excuse the pun, but I have to declare war on all violence. To move to say, I don't want to have any violence towards anything for any reason, if at all possible. I think that's the center of, it's purging yourself of all the violence on the inside.
That was a good word. I mean, every once in a while you get it right.
Every once in a while I get it right. Most of the time, no, I know, but
Because so frequently with sort of peace church traditions, the bad guy becomes the nation or the army or something, which is very convenient, because what it means is you can sort of point the finger and feel self-righteous about condemning a war effort and pick it, which the hard work is going home and you not being violent either in thought, word, or deed towards your loved ones, like to actually being peacemakers in your own home, for example, or amongst your employee. That's where the hard work is. And so often we deflect it onto sort of the other very easy areas to point fingers at rather than letting it roost at home. And so that's absolutely, amen.
And do you see how, I understand what I worry about this. The Bible says, let peace rule in your heart. I love that teaching in the New Testament. Let peace rule in your heart. What a ruler. To be submitted to peace in all things. And you see, if it's possible and even likely, unless they know otherwise, for people to believe right things but believe them violently. You're a militant for the rightness of your position. and you use it to separate yourself from others and stand over others, thereby detracting worth from others and ascribing worth to yourself. And as I read the New Testament, the minute we do that, all your correct doctrine is worthless, absolutely worthless. And so if there isn't a commitment towards peace, and peace that's done out of love for God, love for self, and love for others, then everything else is lost. 1 Corinthians 13, it's all just religious noise. That's why I think this is the center of the center of the center.